Coyote and Racheal had started again. They had kept the whole compound awake till about 1 a.m. when Baba Rahman was able to settle them. Coyote was about to leave the house by 4 a.m. when Racheal stopped him. "Coyote, where is the money for food? The baby food has finished, no drop of Gary in the house. How do you want me and my son to survive until you return?" She asked. He ignored her and continued tying the lace on his shoes. "Coyote, you've started again? Oh, when I start now people will say I'm too stubborn. I need money to buy water and prepare food. You can't leave me and this boy like this." Racheal rattled. "See, Racheal, I beg you in the name of God, don't come and spoil my day for me. I won't take rubbish from you this morning." Coyote warned her. The room was dimly lit. She couldn't see the anger that buttered his face. "Oh, last week you went to hold a birthday party for your girlfriend in Kavanagh? You think I don't know? You think I don't know? You think I didn't see the pictures? See, I don't want trouble with you. Are you treating me like this because I am not Yoruba, or because you know I am an orphan?" Racheal asked, tears almost falling from her eyes. 2-year-old Wilson rubbed his face and woke up from sleep. His mother's voice had disrupted his sleep. He sat up quietly on the bed watching his parents. "You're mad in your head. I work hard for my money. I'll give it to whoever I want. You think I don't know you were sleeping around? You want to blackmail me. May God damage your dead father, idiot. See this bastard, I told you to abort this thing, but you choose to pin it on me. I don't care how you survive. If you want to go and do a shawu, which is your handwork, I don't care. I'll sleep with anyone I like. I don't have money for you and your son. He said, picking up his touchscreen's handset and turned the lock on the door. Racheal grabbed his shirt. "Where do you think you are going, Coyote? You will kill me today, you see me and my son? We're not going to stay hungry today. It's Siki that told me that you spent 20,000 naira to buy bush meat and drinks for your friends. You won't leave us hungry." Racheal folded his white round neck polo into her hand. The shirt got rumpled and stained. Coyote went to the light socket and switched it on. He was so mad at her. He slapped her across the face. For a moment Racheal went blind. She didn't let go of his shirt. She began to scream. "Kill me, Coyote. You must kill me today," he wept, grabbing Coyote's shirt, and baby Wilson began to cry. "Daddy, stop. Daddy, stop." The 2 years cried as he crawled down from the bed to protect his mother. Coyote was a beast. He kept beating Racheal. He kicked her to the ground and hit her head hard against the wall. The thudding sound of her skull hitting the wall sent shock waves throughout all the rooms in Baba Rahman's house. "Jesus, you must kill me, Coyote, kill me," Racheal said, grabbing his shirt. She tore it from the neck down to the waist. "You tore my shirt." Coyote screamed. He pushed Wilson, who was grabbing his leg. The boy fell backwards and hit his head against the headboard of the bed. The baby began to bleed from the head. "See what you did to my son," Racheal screamed, and hit Coyote with a gas cylinder. He collected the empty cylinder from her hand and began to hit her with it. He hit her against the head and face, until her eyes were swollen shut. Racheal fell down and hit her head against the ground. She remained still, not moving a finger. He spat on her and went to his wardrobe to change his shirt. He stepped over her body and walked out of the house. The bleeding baby crawled to his mother and was trying hard to lift her up. Her limp hands fell to the ground. Mummy woke up. He cried in a babyish tongue. Some neighbors came to the door. "Chai, this man is very wicked. Does he want to kill her?" A woman said. The whole floor had turned red, slippery with fresh blood, and he had broken her head in several places. "We have to take her to the hospital." A neighbor said they lifted Racheal and rushed her to a private hospital in the neighborhood. She was revived and placed on admission. She was in the hospital for 3 days. Coyote didn't show his face. He disappeared from the earth. The bill ran to 80,000 naira. Neighbors had to raise part of the fund and pay the hospital. They promised to complete payment when they saw Coyote. For 5 days Coyote didn't return to the compound. The neighbors got weary of feeding Racheal and her son. The food stopped coming. Hunger threatened the life of mother and son. She regretted stopping her work when she took in Coyote. He insisted she stopped her work, or they ended the relationship. She loved him and wanted to keep her child, so she stopped. She regretted it. Early in the morning, on a rainy morning, she tied her baby on her back and left the compound. She walked aimlessly until she got to the main canal bridge. She kept staring at the water below the bridge. She thought about throwing herself and her baby into the water so all her pains would be gone. She had never enjoyed life for one day. Her mother died while she was giving birth to her. Her single father took care of her for another 5 years. He died from heartbreak. She was left in the care of her aunts. The scars on her body was testament to the torture she endured. She ran out of the house when she turned 18. She met the cute young 25-old taxi driver, who told her things nobody had ever said to her. She fell into his embrace. When she took in for KO'd 1 month later, the love language changed when she refused to abort her child. He tortured her so much that she missed her aunt's house. She had run back to her aunt's place for refuge and chased her away to face her worst nightmare. The night was still dark. It was about 4 a.m. When she gazed at the water for 10 minutes, her boy began to kick inside the wrapper she had tied him with. She walked till she got to Ayana, a Jagunal bus stop. She loosened her baby and lay him on the wrapper she had used to back him. She sat and wept. She brought a pen and book with her. "Please, whoever finds this note, please help me take care of my son. His name is Wilson. His father rejected him. I cannot take care of him. I can't watch him cry and die of hunger. I love my son. It hurts my heart that I have to leave him behind. I pray a good Samaritan find him and take care of him. May God bless you." She said her tears washed off some of the ink she had written with. She tore the sheet of paper and placed it near the boy. She covered him well with the wrapper. She stood there glaring at her baby who was lying in front of a shop. She cried as she walked away. It was around 6 a.m. when the owner of the shop screamed, "Jesus Christ of Nazareth!" The woman screamed, placing her hand over her mouth. Her neighbors ran to where she was looking. The startled little boy began to cry, looking at the strange faces that surrounded him, looking for his mother. My mummy." He wept, looking for Racheal. He searched in vain. His mother was not to be seen. He wouldn't let anyone touch him. The boy cried until mucus and tears mixed up soaked his white shirt wet. "Habanae, who leaves this kind fine boy for the street?" Mama Ngozi, the shop owner where Racheal had dumped her child, asked. Thank God she didn't kill me." "Oh," her market neighbor Mama Rukayat said. My mummy, Wilson cried heavily, searching for his mother with frustration. "Leave me. Leave me," he fought with the first person who tried to pick him from the ground, his mouth lowered to their arm to bite. His white round neck polo was soaked wet with sweat and tears. Mama Ngozi rushed to an akara joint and got him pap and akara. "Please move aside so he can eat." The woman said she was a heavy-set woman with a cheerful round face. "Baby boy, we want to help you. Sit down and eat, okay?" The woman said and placed the food in front of Wilson. The boy observed everyone. He immediately sat down and began to gulp down the food. He was so famished, the people disappeared before him, as his attention was turned to his food. This boy must have been so hungry," a lady said. When he was done eating, Mama Ngozi picked him up. "We should take him to the police station and make a report." She said the market men and women agreed. They trooped behind her to the police station. "Madam, where did you say you saw the baby?" a policewoman dressed in a black uniform asked. "Well, I came to my shop this morning. I saw this baby boy lying down on the ground, with this bag beside him," she said. With this note from the mother, she handed the jotter to the policewoman, who read and kept on nodding. "We will have to collect this child and take him to an orphanage," the police said. "No, madam. God brought this child to my doorstep. I'm going to keep him." Mama Ngozi said, "Madam, that's not how it's done. You can't keep him." A male policeman said, "Sir, I don't want this child to go to a motherless baby's home. I've 3 children of my own. I will take care of him as my son, so he won't lack the love of a mother." Mama Ngozi said, "Madam, I'll give you custody of the child, but I'll connect you to Child Welfare Service to be sure this boy will be well taken care of. Put your address here," the policewoman said. Mama Ngozi jotted down her home address and thanked the woman. She had called her husband. He permitted her to bring the boy home. They had 3 daughters and no son yet. When they left the Child Welfare Service, Wilson spotted Racheal from afar. He began to cry, struggling to get down from Mama Ngozi's arm. "Mummy, come back. Mummy, come back," he cried angrily, trying to throw himself from Mama Ngozi's arms. The market neighbors searched around for Racheal, but she had disappeared the way she came. Racheal sat down and sobbed. Her son's cry cut through her heart like a knife. She was grateful people took him to the police station. She began to walk by the road, aimlessly wondering what she would do with her life. She was so thirsty and hungry when she stopped to rest by the roadside. She dozed off sitting by a street lamp. She was awoken by the sound of a car that stopped near her. She was frozen when she opened her eyes and saw Kayode. He was sitting at the driver's seat, his face reddened with anger. "So you didn't die? Why did you leave the house? You should have waited for hunger to finish you and your bastard son," he said, spat at her and drove away. Racheal got up and cleaned the saliva on her arm. "Where will I go now? I don't have anyone in Lagos to run to. I'll go and make money. When I make enough money, I'll come back and take my son." She mumbled to herself, "I'll not have to beg for food, I'll have my own house." She walked from Ajagunal to Apapa and searched for a spot to sleep when the night fell. She couldn't sleep all night. Her stomach was rumbling louder than an angry cloud on a stormy day. She had not eaten any food for close to 48 hours. And then she worried about her son. She wondered if he was okay wherever he was. She felt a strong urge to go back and get him, but she knew that hunger and malnutrition awaited him. She thought she would go back for him when she made some money, so she could be able to fend for him. Wilson found it very hard to sleep the first few days. He would be in bed and suddenly shiver and wake up, then begin to cry until Mama Ngozi would pet him into sleep. He kept seeing his father beat his mother until her head was covered in blood. He gradually began to get used to the children in the house. He bonded more with Ijoma. She was almost his age, just a few months older. He started school with them. He was amazingly bright. Nobody could believe the boy had never been to school. "Sweetheart, the children are now 4. I'm carrying the 4th child. I am finding it hard with shop and chores," Mama Ngozi said to her husband. Her head rested on his massive chest. "Who do you want to come and stay with us, Amaka?" he asked her. "Well, my sister Joyce has been wanting to come to Lagos. She can come and help us in the shop and in the house. Then we will put her in a hairdressing saloon to learn," Amaka said. "But is it not the same Rejoice you said is giving your parents trouble in the village? The one that won't let your mother breathe? Bringing boys to the compound?" her husband asked. "My husband, she's changed. She's now a grown-up girl. She should change the environment," Amaka said. "Okay, oh. But remember, all our kids are girls. I don't want her to come and corrupt them for me." "Oh," he said. "Come on, baby. Why will you think like that? My sister won't do such," she said. He didn't say another word. He drifted to sleep. Joyce arrived in Lagos a few months later. Her elder sister had gone to the market, her in-law to his electronic shop. She was surprised to see a stranger in her sister's house. She wasn't aware of Wilson's presence in the house. Her nieces embraced her. She kept her eyes on the boy, glaring at him like a witch. "Who is he?" she asked Ngozi, her sister's eldest daughter. "Aunt Joyce, how's Grandpa and Grandma and Chisholm?" 9 years old, Ngozi asked. "They're fine. They said I should greet you people." "Who is this boy?" she asked, staring at Wilson, who sat far away from her, gazing at her with fearful eyes. "He's our brother. His name is Wilson," Chilaka said. "Your brother Ijoma? Do you have a twin?" she asked her sister's daughter. Ijoma laughed. "No, he's not my twin, but he's my brother," she said. "But he's my brother," she added. Joyce waved for Wilson to come to her. The 5-year-old boy turned and ran from the sitting room. Mama Ngozi returned from the shop. At about 6 p.m. she was so happy to see her sister. "Rejoice, you didn't call to tell me you've arrived?" Mama Ngozi said, embracing her. "Oh sister, I missed you so much. For 3 years you didn't come to check on us. Mama isn't happy with you." "Oh," she said with a playful anger on her face. "My dear, life in Lagos isn't easy. Oh, me and my husband have to work hard to be able to provide for these kids," she said. "Hey, mum, and you add another mouth?" Joyce said. "What do you mean, Rejoice?" Mama Ngozi asked her sister with a frown on her brow. "Sister, never mind. I've made bitter leaf soup and egusi with Gary for dinner, like how Mama used to make it. You'll like it." Joyce changed the tone and topic. "Have you served the children?" Mama Ngozi asked her sister. "Yeah, they've eaten, sister," Joyce said. "They're doing their assignments," she said. Wilson was in his room, face covered on the bed. He refused to go out to eat. When Joyce called for her nieces to come to the dining table, the lady didn't call him. He could see the hate in her eyes. He stayed away from her. But his stomach had begun to grumble. The 5-year-old boy dozed off without food. A soft tap on his back roused him up from sleep. "Hey, little man, how are you doing?" He heard the voice of his adoptive father. He was smiling down at him. "Daddy, welcome, sir. How was work?" Wilson said. "Fine. Why are you sleeping so early? Are you sick?" the man asked. Wilson shook his head. His stomach began to grumble in the presence of Mr. Amunike. "Have you eaten?" he asked Wilson. The boy shook his head. "What?" he cried. "Came down and followed me to the parlor," he said. Wilson followed behind him. Joyce was sitting with her sister catching on old times when her in-law stopped in front of her and his wife. "Joyce, why did you not give Wilson food?" he barked angrily. "Sir, I called him, and he refused to answer," she lied. "Let it be the first and last time that would repeat itself. This boy is just 5 years old. How can you be that way with him?" Amunike scolded his sister-in-law, who remained quiet. "But you told me that they've all eaten." Mama Ngozi said to her sister. She hissed and got up from the couch to the kitchen where she brought food for Wilson. Joyce watched him as he ate in silence. Wilson was sneaking out of the house when he came face to face with Joyce. She gazed at him suspiciously. He immediately hid his hand behind his back. "Come here, Wilson. What are you hiding?" she asked. "Nothing, Aunt Rejoice," he said, heart shaking, scared of her next step. "Come here." She grabbed him and spun him over. "Why did you touch my pot of soup?" Joyce barked. Wilson began to cry. "Aunt, I'm hungry. You've not given me food since I came back from school," Wilson said, expecting a slap from Joyce. "Is this your father's house?" "Oh, you don't know you're a bastard they picked from the street?" Joyce said, walking towards Wilson, who kept taking a step away from the mean girl. "I said, come here, Wilson," Joyce yelled. Wilson shook his head, stepping away from her. She chased after him. He ran into the kitchen. She followed him. She picked a spatula from the kitchen sink and hit Wilson on the head. "Jesus Christ. My head," the boy screamed. "You're a thief. You should never take your stealing to my pot of soup," she barked as she flogged the boy all over his body. "I am sorry. I'll not do it again," the boy screamed, rolling on the ground. The meat fell from his pocket. "You are stealing meat from my pot, you thief!" Wilson hit his head against the kitchen sink. His head began to bleed. "Aunt Rejoice, do you want to kill him?" Ngozi and her sisters ran it. "Aunt Rejoice, why are you beating him? You didn't give him food. What did you want him to do?" "I'll tell my daddy when he comes back," Ajoma said angrily, staring down at her aunt. "If any of you tell your parents, I'll make sure you see pepper. You thief, go to your room now. Let my sister and her husband see this wound on your head. You'll regret the day your mother gave birth to you, bastard," she said, and chased the children out of the room. Wilson went to his room. The excruciating pains made it impossible for him to lay on his back. He whimpered till his father and mother returned from the market. "Where has Wilson eaten?" Wilson heard Mr. Amunike softly ask Joyce. "He's eaten. He's already sleeping," Joyce said with a straight face. "Ajoma, how was school today?" he asked his daughter, who was staring angrily at her aunt. "School was fine, Daddy," she said, and left for her room, while her aunt was bringing food to the center table for her parents. Wilson didn't close his eyes that night. The pain didn't reduce it, only for the worst. He developed fever at night. The food was bone-freezing. His teeth gnashed as he coiled up like a millipede that was touched with a stick. The next morning, the 6-year-old boy remained in bed while his siblings were preparing for school. Mr. Amunike drove to Onitsha to check his goods that were brought from China to his warehouse. The house was once again quiet. Joyce locked the door and left for the hairdressing shop where she was an apprentice. The little boy thought he would die that morning. He began to cry inside the house, but nobody was around to tend to him. "Hello, Wilson, how are you doing?" Ajoma asked when they returned from school, and she went into his room to check on him. "My head is aching. I think I am sick," Wilson said. "Should I get you food?" Ajoma asked. "No, I just want to drink water." Ajoma ran into the kitchen and grabbed a cold bottle of water. "Do you think I'm a bastard?" Wilson asked Ajoma. She shook her head. "Forget what Aunt Joyce said. You're our brother. Daddy and Mummy are your parents." Wilson nodded. "I want to sleep." He said, "We should tell Mummy and Daddy what Aunt Joyce has been doing to you whenever they're not around." Ajoma said, "No, oh, do you want her to kill me?" "I'll be fine, don't worry, eh?" Ajoma nodded. She came back to check on him. He was looking pale and was sweating profusely. He was also shivering in bed. She ran to her aunt in the kitchen. "Aunt Rejoice, can I please borrow your phone?" she asked with a polite puppy eyes. "What do you want to tell her?" she asked Ajoma. I want to tell Mummy to help me buy my graph. I forgot to tell her in the morning. She passed the phone to Ijoma. Hello Mummy, Wilson is burning up. He's very sick. He has not been able to get up from the bed since morning. He didn't go to school. Mama Ngozi cut off her daughter. What? You mean he's sick and your aunt didn't tell me? I'm on my way and I'll be home soon. She arrived home at the same time with her husband. She told him what Ijoma had told her. They both ran into his room. The boy was lying in bed, eyes turned out, convulsing from time to time. Mr. Amunak grabbed the boy and dashed out of the house, his wife running after him. They prayed that the boy would survive. Wilson was lying in bed, eyes tightly shut. Mrs. Amaka sat next to him. She felt stupid. She couldn't believe under her nose her son was being maltreated. The nurses showed her clear signs that he was beaten and bruised. Mr. Amunak and his wife waited for the boy to get better. He wanted to know if it was Joyce that inflicted the severe injuries on him. But when he woke up, Wilson refused to tell them who had beaten him black and blue. Was it your teacher, Wilson? Amaka asked softly, with care and compassion in his eyes. No, Mum, it wasn't, Wilson said, shaking his head. Was it Joyce? She asked. The boy hesitated before shaking his head. I was playing football with the boys at school. Somebody roughed me and I fell on a stone and injured myself. Wilson lied. Amaka bought his sweet story, not her husband. He gazed at him critically. You're lying. Tell me it's not Joyce. Mr. Amunak vehemently insisted. I fell and injured. He tried to lie. Mr. Amunak stomped out of the ward. His wife ran after him. Why are you behaving irrationally? She asked her husband. Is that the way we would find out what's wrong with our son? She asked. I know your sister is bad news. If I ever find out she has a hand in what happened to this poor boy, I'm going to send her back to the village. Amunak threatened. Why do you want it to be my sister so badly? I know you never wanted her to come to Lagos. Is Wilson a baby that he wouldn't know if it was my sister who injured him? Amaka asked in defense of her sister. I've said my own oh, I don't want to even hear it. She won't like what I would do to her. The man said. Mr. Amunak and his wife stayed over Wilson till the next morning when he left to go prepare for his shop. Amaka stayed with the boy till Joyce came over. When they all left, she walked up to his bed, with an angry frown on her face. Did you tell them I did it to you? She asked Wilson. The boy shook his head. Good for you if you tell them. I'll put rat killer in your food so you'll eat and die. She said with a sinister look on her face. He knew from all indications that the lady would do it. I won't ever tell anyone, he promised. Wilson was discharged from the hospital on the 4th day. His adoptive sisters were so happy. They all took a turn to embrace the boy. Daddy said you took many injections, Ijoma asked. Wilson nodded. Does it hurt? She asked curiously. It hurts like fire. It stung my buttocks. I couldn't take it. Elle cried any time I saw the nurses coming, until they all started calling me cry baby, Wilson narrated. The girls laughed. Did you tell Dad and Mum that Aunt Joyce did? Joyce was heading to the kitchen, but paused to hear what the kids were discussing when she heard her name. Tell Daddy what? Joyce asked. Nothing, Aunt, we were just playing a game. Ngozi, the firstborn, replied. You better keep your mouth shut. Any of you who say anything will have me to deal with, she said and hissed before heading to the kitchen.